A new world order is emerging.
What happens if our economy and the U.S. dollar are no longer the world's dominant currency?
Yes, we're changing the world order.
Amid the current U.S. dollar shortages and drought that's being witnessed in a number of countries around the world following measures imposed by the United States of America to curb inflation as well as COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine war spillovers, it's quite understandable that some countries are looking for mechanisms that eliminate high dependency on the dollar in their international trade settlements. At the same time, countries such as Russia and China, which have lately been accusing the United States of weaponizing the dollar, are not only championing for such dollar non-dependent mechanisms but also pushing for creation of an international currency that will supposedly challenge the US dollar's hegemony. Through their Brics bloc of emerging markets, which also has India, Brazil and South Africa as its members but which is projected to grow bigger in terms of membership in the coming decades, these economic giants are working on creating a common currency that they say will not only ease and foster trade amongst members of that bloc but will also act as a buffer against a dollar that can easily be weaponized to their disadvantage. But before we proceed to looking at possibilities of a Brics dollar or such a currency dethroning the US dollar in the near future, here's a brief history of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency and how we got here. The US dollar became the world's reserve currency in 1944 as a result of the Bretton Woods Agreement, in which 44 countries adopted the US dollar as the world's reserve currency.
With World War II coming to an end, the Allied nations met at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to create a new financial system which would stabilize the world once the war ended. With America poised to enter a golden age of prosperity, the US dollar was chosen as the world's reserve currency.
This agreement came as a result of the stability of the US dollar in global markets as well as the position that was being held by the United States in international trade, because at that time, the US GDP represented 50% of the entire world's GDP. Therefore, since 1944, the US dollar has been occupying the position of the world's reserve currency, and that's why countries always monitor monetary policies and developments in the US as a guide against inflationary and other adverse monetary effects of US policies on them. The dollar supremacy was received well and embraced for a couple of decades, but the US has lately been receiving heavy criticism from all around the world, with multiple countries like China, Russia, Venezuela, Iran and many others accusing Washington of weaponizing the dollar to fight geopolitical battles. These accusations have resulted in recommendations for creation of an independent global currency that will replace the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Recommendations that started as far back as 2010 according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. But since there have not been indications that such a global currency that will replace a vulnerable US dollar and ultimately slay the beast will be created any soon, we've lately seen developments where countries have opted to eliminate the dollar in their cross-border trade. Developments like Brazil and China striking a deal to settle trade in their local currencies, India and Malaysia signing an accord to adopt the usage of Indian rupees in their cross-border businesses, India and Russia agreeing to trade some commodities like oil and gas in local currencies, and African countries working on mechanisms for them to trade in their local currencies, with the African Exim Bank being tasked with settling the transactions.
Today, Afri-Exim Bank have given us a mechanism where traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency. That is why Kenya champions the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that is done by our own institution, the Afri-Exim Bank. Why, members? Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason.
Even France, which is the United States' perennial ally, has started to complete some of its transactions in the Chinese yuan.
France has signed a trade agreement allowing payment in yuan instead of dollars or euros. This marks the first European country in the West to do so.
Of course, these mechanisms have their own share of risks and challenges, and that's why Brics members are working on creating a common currency that will eliminate those challenges and risks as well as bypass and eliminate the dollar in their cross-border trade settlements. It's for this reason that we are here to look at possibilities of such a currency coming into effect and what is possibly required for that currency to slay the US dollar's hegemony. As you may already be aware, the second most held currency in the global economy is the European Union's euro, which was introduced in 1999, followed by the Chinese yuan, which was declared as an official world reserve currency by the International Monetary Fund in 2016. However, these currencies have not been able to dethrone the US dollar as the most preferred currency in international trade, and that's why we believe Brics members have a lot to do for their common currency to ultimately challenge the US dollar. For starters, it's said that the common currency that Brics economies are planning to introduce will be backed by gold. Then, since more and more countries have recently been expressing desire to join the BRICS bloc, with over 20, among them Mexico, Nigeria, Egypt, Venezuela, Argentina, Indonesia, Iran, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia having shown interest so far, we believe this will be the most important characteristic of the currency that will make it ultimately succeed. That is, a currency that's backed by gold and that which is commonly shared and embraced by dozens of countries coming from various continents around the world but belonging to a shared economic bloc. Therefore, we believe current BRICS members will only be able to de-dollarize the world and have a BRICS dollar as the world's most preferred currency in international trade if they will accept more members in the bloc. By having more members in the bloc who are willing to work together and follow a shared objective, they'll be able to gain the necessary numbers that will likely agree for adoption of a gold-backed BRICS dollar as the reserve currency in over half of the world, and this might be the much-anticipated Bretton Woods II or their version of the same. It's even out of that Bretton Woods II that we believe a new world order will emerge, and it'll likely not be an order that's led by one country like the US right now, but rather a bloc made up of several powerful countries. Who knows? This gold-backed BRICS dollar might ultimately end up being the much-desired independent and stable global currency. But the big question is, will G7 members, that is US, UK, Germany, Japan, Canada, France, Italy and the European Union, which controls 62% of the world's GDP today, allow a BRICS era to emerge and ultimately rule the world? Let us know your views on this in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe before leaving.